remember watching my husband play with my son, my oldest son, who was a toddler at the time. They were wrestling or whatever, something like that. And I walked down the stairs and I saw that and I started crying because I realized I was like, oh, that's what I didn't get. And I watched him with our boys. I'm like, that's the stuff.
We've all had a moment in our life where things just kind of click in our head. As we grow and evolve, these things can actually tell us a lot about who we are. Dawn Rosemond is someone who's experienced this throughout her entire life. Through her business, Reign, she's dedicated herself to helping people find their inner greatness. Because for such a long time, she wasn't able to find it within herself. I think that this is something that we can all identify with because we've all dealt with it at one point or another in our life. She would describe her business to you as a platform for leadership and empowerment, but it's so much more than that. It's a movement that is poised to change an entire culture. I've had so many entrepreneurs share their journey with me, and it's incredible how many people started their hustle because of that snap moment. Perfect. Dawn, I'm so glad that we're here. I'm so glad.
Finally.
Every time you and I get together and chat, it is such a magical experience. Like when we went for lunch the other day, it was like we sit down and it's like bam. As soon as like I could hit record right then and there. And it's just so inspiring because you and I focus, and a lot of other people focus on the important things about life, the depth, right? Where a lot of, how's work? I'm pretty sure we never talk about work.
I hate that. It's small talk, right? I hate small talk. Yeah.
So, but I think that awareness that you and I have of like, okay, where am I coming from? What am I doing?
Yeah.
How did I do it? Why am I doing it that way? Is there a better way? And how do you like help other people? That intentionality in life, I think, is super important.
Yeah.
And once you get on it, you can't get off.
You can't. And you, this is not a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a, we don't, I just put a post out the other day and I'm like, you see, but stop acting like you're going to get another one, and I'm talking to myself first. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be intentional about these moments.
Yeah.
This is never going to happen again. I mean, we could come in this room and we could endeavor to try and duplicate whatever it is we're about to do.
Right.
But this moment right now, this is unique, as special as it gets. Yeah. My gosh, that's true about every aspect of our days.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm trying to be better about that. I wasn't always that way, but I'm trying to be really mindful of the gift I have every moment.
And I'm sure you, like me, you experience the difference when you lose that awareness. Like when I stop journaling, things just start happening to me.
Yeah.
When I'm like, what happened? Why did I do it? How am I feeling today? You just almost have that awareness and that control, and you're like, okay, need to be going to bed earlier, need to be doing this. You start to see that, but so many times we just don't slow down and look in here. And that's when we get lost. Because there's work, then you got the kids, then you got this, and before you know it, you're just going through the motions for 10, 20, 30 years, and you're like, how, like life happens to you.
That's been my biggest prayer probably for the last, certainly this year, definitely, probably for the last 2 years, is I've been asking, I was like, hey, God, teach me how to rest. And I don't mean it just in terms of like, I mean it literally, and that I wasn't sleeping well and I wasn't, taking care of myself in that regard. I got myself a sleep tracker and all sorts of stuff, but literally just to quiet my mind.
Yeah.
To settle down, to stop all the moving, the extra stimulus, to stop all of that, to cut all that out so I could hear. I could hear my own breathing.
Yeah.
To hear, and I get it. There are different people that believe different things, but I can only talk about me, what my belief system is. So for me to hear my own breathing, to hear what God's trying to say to me, I truly, truly believe. I mean, he's talking all the time. It just gets crowded out by all this noise we allowed to come in. And so for me, it's been my prayer, and I'm getting better every day just to really learn how to rest, to get the instructions. My gosh, when you hear the right instruction, get quiet for a moment, it could save you so much time.
Yes.
Plus, to your point, I don't know about anybody else. I was terrible at stopping to smell the proverbial roses. Mm-hmm. I was always on the way.
You're going for that next one.
The next
You're focused on the next one.
Yeah. The next one. I got to do this. Got to do bigger.
Yeah.
That didn't work. It wasn't like this. I should have done it like this. So it's always there. And I'm like, I got to be better. And my friend, my dear, dear sorority sister, said to me once, she was like, this has been a few years ago, and so I clearly have still a lot of work to do. But she was like, when I wrote my first book, she was like, you need to go home and put your book out, put your shirts out, all the stuff, all the things that you've done. Just put them all out in the bed. Mm-hmm. And I think she's going to say something all, terribly profound. She's like, then you need to learn how to celebrate that shit. You need to sit in that.
Yes.
Because you're not. And so I can tell because you don't see what we see. Mm-hmm. And so you need to give yourself that moment. And so I've been intentionally trying to practice that more and more. Again, because we don't get another one. And what's the point, right? If we're doing all these things and you never see how cool this is. I hope you sit in this for you. I hope you sit in this. It's a big deal.
Exactly. So let's get into all of that because I think those are the things that we don't consider enough. I had the same thing, when Founder Spark started, I think year 2, it just was so big and so many things that we had never done. Someone wrote me a $16,000 check and said, here you go. We trust you. And I'm
You're like,
what am I going to do with all this money? It was my first check of that size. And we did like a festival outside. We did all these programs. We were doing all these events. And it was like by the end of July, the best thing I ever did was book an Airbnb on a little farm outside of Bloomington for like 3 days. And I just went by myself and I just sat there and I just said, what just happened? What am I doing? And that time to kind of sit in was super critical because it established that direction for me.
You did it to celebrate or just to focus on what you'd done?
Like, you went from this to doing all of this, and you did it, and you did it well. Your sponsors are happy, your friends are happy, everyone who attended is happy. How incredible is it that you pulled that off and that you went in blind? You had no idea what the plan was. You had no idea how you were going to pull it off, but you did. Because it's not just the act of, we did it, then let's go and be nervous about the next thing. It's learn the fact that you can pull out of yourself that greatness when you need to.
Yeah.
When you have to step up, you are capable of step up. We're always going to be in situations that make us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're always going to be in situations where we don't know what we're doing. You can't trust that you know the material. You have to trust that you know yourself.
You have to know you. That's
exactly.
good. Yeah. You got to know you. You got to, because at the end of the day, that's what makes everything pop, right? Everything that we're doing, somebody's done it on some level. I mean, someone's written a book. Someone's had a show. Someone's, had a concert. Someone's had an art, whatever it may be. Someone's done it in some form. But they've never had you.
Yeah.
You have, and that's the sweets. That's the secret sauce. That's the superpower. Whatever you want to call it. And so that's what you have to. You just have to know. And I'm learning that you have to know. Like, it's okay. I just did a, and I know we'll talk about this, but I just did a rain class. It's a big rain class, and ended up. I got off stage and I go back in the green room and I just cried. I just cried. My husband was back there and I just cried because I was like, I just wanted to, and I did it on purpose. I went back there and I didn't cry. Crying just came out, but I went back there and sat for about a good 30, 45 minutes because I wanted to take it in.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go out there and be like, oh, this. I just needed to be like, yeah, you planned for this. You saw this. This came out from what you had inside. You just left it out there.
Yeah. And I've coined a term that I call the bathroom moments. When you're in the bathroom, right before stage, right before whatever it is, and you're there and you're like, all right, man, we're here on earth at this age.
Yeah.
We're in this situation. And I'm just so grateful that I get to experience this. Whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety, whether it's happiness, whatever it is, I'm so glad I get to be here participating.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those moments where you stop, you close the door. And for me, when I close that bathroom door, nothing exists but me in that room. I look in the mirror and it's just me to me.
Yeah.
What are we doing? What are we about to go do?
Yeah.
Is this, whether we get it right or wrong.
Can't go back now.
We're in
They're
here.
out there.
You're at the top of the,
That's
about
right.
to go down.
That's right.
But I think something to think about, and I mean, you know this as well as anyone, is it's a journey.
Yeah.
Right? We don't just, hey, we know it all, or let's figure it out.
Yeah.
We have to go through our trials and tribulations in order to get there. So I want you to take me back to kind of what that childhood was like for you. Like, what kind of girl were you? What were those early years like for you that created the base of who you are now?
Yeah. So, what kind of girl was I? I love that question.
Yeah.
You know, I was, and I can talk about her pretty intelligently now because I realize that I'm being reintroduced to her. I lost her for a long time, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about that, but I'm being reintroduced to her. Little Dawn, so creative. Some things haven't changed. So mouthy.
Yeah.
So opinionated, so strong. And I think about it. I was a high feeler then, still am now. I was raised from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I was raised by an amazing woman, a single mom. My father left when I was 4.5 years old. I don't remember. I try to remember time before his leaving. I don't remember him much, which sometimes frustrates me.
Sure.
But he leaves when I'm 4.5 years old, so you can imagine. I mean, most of my formative years were without him. The lion's share of my years were without him, right? So I was, that certainly created an incredible amount of scarring. I didn't realize how much so until later. But at that time, I just knew. I thought he was coming. My mom used to get me ready because I was a daddy's girl. Used to get me ready because he said he was coming back to get me.
Oh, that had to be rough.
It was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, I actually do remember that. That's what frustrates me is I remember stuff like this. Because we had this gate that made this kind of creaky noise every time. So somebody's at your house. We lived in an apartment and off of Washington Center Road, and I would hear that gate, and I'm like, my dad.
Oh no.
My dad's coming. So my mom would get me up in the mornings, get me dressed. I'm like, he's coming, and she's like, Dawn. I'm like, my dad. My dad's coming, Mom. Just my dad's coming, and she's this I don't remember, but I remember the feeling. I don't remember saying this to her, but she told me that I said to her one day. She got me up. It was early. You're supposed to come get me, and I told her, I said, don't worry about it, because he's not coming. And at that moment, I realized, and this is language I didn't have at 4.5 years old or 5 years old or however old I was then, but I have certainly now, is that he taught me, and he's passed away now, and I totally 100%, if he were here, would have total forgiveness for him. I understand things about life and humans and choices and adults and things that I didn't understand then. But back then, he taught me that I wasn't enough. Because I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
He left me.
It didn't click.
And my mother, I realize now that I never had conversations with her about this because I didn't know how to express that to her.
Yeah.
That's what I adopted. Clearly, if you look at, if we had the time and you could unpack like the things I used to do and the decisions I made and the way I processed any sort of rejection, the way certain things landed for me, it was always because I completely believed him. At least the message he left that, hey, you weren't worthy enough for me to stay.
Well, those are the people we trust. Those are the people we look at to keep us safe, to show us how the world works. They ingrain such a deep print in who we become to the point where it's not till, like you said, you're older, you're like, that's why.
That's why.
Because we have to learn as individuals, as kids, how to survive, how to adapt, how to make sense of things that don't make sense to us.
And you know what's funny? Now we're talking about this, I didn't even think about it. Like when my mother would go away, say for a weekend with friends or something like that, I would freak. Such to the point where some of my cousins, they're like, I don't want Dawn to come over here. She cries all the time or whatever. It was because I knew she wasn't coming back. I mean, in my mind, when my brother went away, and we fought all the time. When my brother went away, I think he went to Florida for something, I freaked out. You could not have told me, even though I had no language to really articulate this, that at some point, whoever's with me, they're gonna leave me.
Yeah.
So so it was interesting because but even with that, I had a wonderful childhood. My mother was an ever-present, strong. She's a bad chick, man. And so she still is. She's 76 now, so she made it her business to make sure that she worked her butt off to try and fill that gap.
Yeah.
right? And so everything was larger than life. I remember having, Christmas celebrations, and I love Christmas to this day. Our tree probably wasn't any taller than probably like that, but she would sit it up on these boxes, and everything she bought, because she didn't have a lot of money. We were poor. I didn't know it, but she would wrap everything in big boxes.
Yeah.
So it looked like massive. Christmas was always magical to me, and things like that. So I had a great childhood because she deliberately decided that she was going to give what she didn't get, and that she was going to make sure that the hole left by my father. And it was a big one, not just for me, financially, for her,
Right.
everything. That hole was not going to be the reason why we went under.
Yeah.
So whether it's we're going to go to college, we're going to do all those things, she always poured that into me, that you guys are going to be, you can be whatever you want to be, all those things. So I had little Dawn was, even though I know now she'd adopted some really bad, she believed some really bad things about herself. Those didn't manifest for me until much later. Then I was a happy kid. I was a creative kid.
Yeah.
I say I wrote my first book. I wrote my first book that I published in 2016, but I wrote my first book back when I was like a first grader. I was always this person that I'm being reintroduced to now.
Yeah. And I love what you said about being reintroduced, coming back, because I'm at that same place where I'm like, I've always been creative. I've always enjoyed, I talk about how extroverted I am. And like for a while during, I think with anyone, middle school, high school, it's tough. It's tough. We don't know ourselves.
Yeah.
It's awkward. We're all trying to figure this thing out. But I remember when we first came to Fort Wayne, coming from Texas, we didn't know any English because we were immigrants, right? Yeah. And in Southern Texas, we didn't have to assimilate or learn English. Yeah. So when my parents took me to Fairfield to register, I remember being in the back of the car and asking my mom, how do I ask them to be my friend in English? Like, just, that I just needed and craved. And there was never what if I get rejected? What if they don't want, it was like, of course they would want to be my friends. Why wouldn't they? And we start off as such natural us. Yeah. And then all of these stories that get told, all of these things that happen start to, so what do? We make the most sense we can out of the pieces that we have. And when we're missing so much of, like you said, being an adult, understanding the hard decisions that need to be made, we tell ourselves whatever story we need to tell, and that just kind of comes little by little, time after time. And then before you know it, it calcifies into all these things that now we have to be careful because we have to undo, because it takes away from that happiness.
Yeah, I mean, seeds get planted. So my dad planted a seed, and it doesn't manifest, doesn't birth until much later, or where I have an awareness of it, but it was there. So as like you said, like you're right, elementary school, I'm cool. Yeah. I'm everybody's friend. I'm cool. I'm fine. We're not in that space yet where life starts doing that thing where they separate the, I call it the, when you get to that stage where they start picking teams, maybe where you're like, you're on that side and you're the captain because you're self-appointed and I'm the captain. You're like, who are you going to pick? And you're like, I'll pick that person. That sort of stuff where we start sifting out who's good and who's bad. Right. Who's pretty and who's ugly. Who's right and who's wrong. Right? Who's smart and who's dumb. We start doing that stuff, right? Probably around like middle school or so. We start separating that out, and then that's when that stuff started to really begin to show up. And so Dawn, elementary school, happy kid. Middle school, still somewhat, but starting to have some edges. I didn't have language for it then, but the reality that I didn't think much of me and I didn't know who I was and I didn't think I was enough began to start seeping out and manifesting. Middle school started to happen. By high school, my gosh. So little Dawn, I call her. So I'm thinking the little Dawn, like elementary school, maybe even middle school. I mean, she's cool. She doesn't know who she is, but she doesn't know that she doesn't know, and it's not impacting her just yet.
So then, what was the difference once you get into those older years? Things start to get a little cliquish. You start to realize that hey, there's pods, and you either fit or you don't. whether it's right or wrong. So what were those years like for you? What is the story that you're telling yourself in your head as to what's going on?
At that time, by the time, especially once I get in like late middle school, so like 8th grade, and then high school in particular, I hated high school. And that's not, a lot of people say that, but at that point, it just really is clicking in because I didn't fit in any of those pods. I would fit nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that now. But then, my gosh, that's hard, right?
Oh, I mean, we are programmed internally to fit in somewhere.
You just want to be like, where's my group? And I
Yeah.
couldn't find it at all. And then I didn't have enough. I teach my kids a totally different language. Like, honey, don't look for the group to fit into, honey. You establish the culture. But
Yeah.
I didn't have that. And my mother couldn't teach me that because she didn't know who she was.
Right.
She can't give what you don't have. You can't, and so she had her own things that she was contending with. And so when I get to, I'm going into high school, I'm awkward at that point. I always had body image issues, courtesy of my kids call people names. That's fine. But I had a relative. She since passed away. That she called me fat, or in some form or fashion, more than she probably called my name.
Wow.
And it was weird because I was the only girl up here. My other family were in Alabama. I was the only girl, and I was around her and my cousins a lot, and it was just really harmful. It's coincidentally, when I told you, like, my mom had her own stuff, the same relative was her sister. Mm-hmm. She treated her the same way when they were younger. And so there's a lot there, but it was just really hard. So I remember being, over there playing. We'd go out, play, just what kids do, riding bikes, whatever. And I'd come back in and, everybody's, they're starving. They're eating stuff. They're making snacks. She'd come in and she's like, Dawn, you can't eat like those boys. You're fat enough already as it is.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm 11, 12.
Wow.
What am I supposed to do with this stuff, right? And so then she would say things like, I remember her saying once, I told her something was pretty in her closet. I'm like, Auntie, that's pretty. She's like, I'd give you all my stuff, but you're too fat to wear it.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and so I'm just like, I had such a complex. And so then that's when the trigger starts. So that seed, I'm not enough. That's why you left. So now you think about it. Hey, I like that boy. He's really cute. He doesn't like me back. I understand. It's because I understand. I'm fat. I get it. Or whatever it may be. He didn't have to say it. Or I didn't get invited. I get it.
Well, you start filling in those gaps.
I fill in the gaps,
Yeah.
right? With the story that got told to me, the seed that got planted with. And I didn't realize, again, this is hindsight. But this is what I was doing when I look back at her. Someone asked me recently, I was on a podcast, and they're like, if you could go back and talk to that Dawn, that somehow we were talking about that season of my life too. It's like, what would you say to her?
Yeah.
And I said, I know this, I'm not trying to not answer the question, but I'm not sure I would say anything to her. I would just hug her. Mm-hmm. She was so alone, but I was smart. And because I was smart and I got good grades, everybody thought I was fine. So nobody checked on me.
That compensation of like, well, you're good at that, so that's your thing.
I was fine. I didn't get in trouble. I got good grades, and so I was fine. And so, and I didn't have the language to go and say, I don't feel good about me. Nobody talked then like they do now about kids being depressed or kids being lost or I should have probably gone to counseling over my dad leaving.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how because I had my mom like, it's cool. It's fine. I thought it was fine.
Right.
I thought it was fine. So in high school, it was just really hard for me because it really sifted me out. I started being very aware of my race, which and I don't mean that I didn't know I was black before, but I had friends of every ilk when I was in elementary school and middle school.
We start noticing the difference.
Yeah, but then they started making me notice it. Mm-hmm. And then I would want to do certain things, and it just would constantly be like, well, you can't do that because you're black, or you can't. I remember wanting a pair of, you remember these, I don't know if I got years on you, but Jordache jeans. They were popular. They were they were stupid jeans, really, but at the time they were the thing. And I wanted a pair of those so bad. And I saved up my money. My mom's like, Dawn, you cannot get those jeans. And I'm like, you said if I saved the money. I said, she goes, it's not the money. You cannot get those jeans. And I remember going, I finally got enough money because they were expensive then. And I went to this store and they couldn't find, they didn't have my size. I kept asking, they didn't have my size. And I came home and I was so upset. And I was like, Mom, I tried to get these jeans. I couldn't get these jeans. She's like, honey, them jeans weren't made for you. They're made for white girls. They're not made for you. And so then I'm struggling like, so something is wrong with me.
Well, and coming from your mom.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
validation there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your mom clearly loved you. So, I mean, what do you think that messaging was? Do you think she didn't realize it, or?
That's protection. I mean, you have to think about at the time. I mean, I'm not saying that it was artful in the way it was expressed, but she's trying to protect me from from the hurt feelings that come with not realizing the harsh realities of this world and the harsh realities of moving around in this world as a black female. She was just trying to protect me. So she's like, honey, I need you to understand this stuff ain't for you. I mean, and it's I remember, forever I couldn't go buy, a pair of nude pantyhose because nude is not my color.
Right.
So I'm like, so she's just trying to like help me. But the way she expressed it, probably she doesn't know I've got all these layers.
Yeah.
You feel me? She doesn't know.
Because again, you said you didn't even have the language.
I didn't tell her.
You don't like it's there's such a distance between what's inside and what other people see.
How much so you know how much I didn't tell her. My mother did not find out about how I felt about a lot of these things until she came to one of my first REIGN classes.
Really?
Which is me grown, me in my 40s. Me, that because I never talked about it. I just survived. I'm a survivor. She taught me that. She taught me a lot of things. My mom was amazing. I'm a survivor. But I didn't know to talk about those things. And it wasn't because she was mean. I didn't think that she would, like, I didn't even know that you were supposed to talk about those things. I didn't know, when my aunt would call me those names, I did tell her that. I remember telling her like, hey, Aunt Flora called me fat or said this or said that. What my mom would say is, she did that to me too. So there's no place to go.
Yeah.
She's hurt too.
She's there stuck with you.
Where am I going to go, right? And so I just internalized all of that and translated it all into a language that affirmed.
Yeah, we justify it. We're like,
this is
where I belong. I shouldn't be treated like this.
That's right.
Well, this is where they said my spot is.
It never even occurred to me that she was wrong.
Yeah.
I look back on pictures now of me at that age. And it actually boggles my mind a little. I'm like, why'd you think you were fat? It's amazing what your mind can do to you.
Yeah.
And how much your thoughts become your ceiling. But it never even occurred to me. I look at my pictures, I'm like, huh. But that's all I knew. That's the only dawn I saw.
And I love what you said earlier about like your parents cannot give you something they don't have, because it was the same thing, with me. There was conversations that I was never having as a kid that I wasn't aware, like, oh, that's a thing. Now, years later, lots of books later, lots of therapy later, it's like you realize, oh, that's why and it's not helping me. And that's why my relationships end the way but it was one of those things where it's like, I had to really acknowledge that they can't provide things that they don't understand. Their generation, their country, they came here to provide me with food, shelter, safety, the basics. But I always say, they survived so that I could thrive.
Yeah.
They put me in a position where I could learn these things, because like you with your kids, you've learned from the things you didn't receive and how important they were, and you make sure your kids have them. And I'm sure your kids having that baseline is going to be, and that's the point. And now again, as we get older, as we have relationships, as we have to make hard decisions, as we see how easy it is to get in a bad situation through no fault of your own, you have so much more compassion. You're like, bravo. Because when I was 23 years old, I was out there downtown partying, going out, getting an Uber back home, whatever. My parents were in a new country with 2 kids, not having any documentation.
Wow.
And I'm like, at that point, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the whole script changes, and you start to realize. So it's in a way, I've learned so much compassion for people, just because I think we're all doing the very best we can.
Yeah.
With the skills we have.
You live out your story. Sometimes though the story is not necessarily the truth.
Yeah.
Your story sometimes is just the lies that you were told all this time. So you start living that out. Somebody's got to break that cycle. Something's got to break that cycle. So when you talk about my kids, my kids would have you can't tell my kids they aren't royalty.
Yeah.
You just can't.
I believe that.
They have moments. Certainly everybody does when they're down or when they're whatever, but you cannot. I have the beautiful privilege now of pointing my own mother to her greatness. if that is not probably one of the greatest gifts I've ever, that I can get her turned on to herself and understand you've been worthy all along.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, high school, tell me, what do you do with that, right? So you're thinking all these things, and then, but you have this thing, you have this intellect, you have this thing that you can grab onto. Where does that take you into the next section of your life as a young adult?
So I'm focused, right? So I remember I'm a survivor, and I had a channel thing. So even though I wanted to, there were people like, the guy I liked that rejected me, or I didn't do all the normal things. I never went to prom. Nobody wanted to take me. I never wanted to go. I never had a prom. I never went on. I don't think I ever went to any. I'm trying to think about that now. I don't think I went to one dance in high school. I never went on. I went on one date. I was going to say I never went on one, but I went on one date, and I didn't want to go to that one. I didn't like this guy, but I just felt like I needed to go because I didn't have any stories to tell.
Yeah.
But I didn't like him. He wasn't mean. He was just, I didn't like him,
Just wasn't it.
Yeah, I just didn't like, but otherwise I had none of those things that people tell you are normal about being in your high school years and dates and all this. I didn't do any of those things, but I was good at school. And I always wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was a little girl. Like that little Dawn wanted to be a lawyer. And so I pursued that. So what I was really good at is throwing myself into something else. I mean, I didn't, again, no language to understand that you're just kind of distracting yourself from this. At that time, I would have just told you I'm really, really focused. And I was. So everything I did was to get me into law school. I was going to be a lawyer. You were not going to take that from me.
Determined, you knew it. It was certain.
It was great. And I couldn't even have told you, if you'd asked me, like, why do you want to be a lawyer? I couldn't have answered you.
Yeah.
It wasn't to, to be an advocate for none of those things. I just wanted to be a lawyer. I get it now. I didn't get it then. But so I focused everything I did, every class I took, every extracurricular activity I participated in, everything. I was going to be a lawyer. I was looking at it as it's going to be great on my resume, it'd be good for me. Probably the only thing that I did that just didn't have anything to do with any of those things was when I trained in martial arts. So I trained in martial arts from 8 years old to like 17, 18. I got my black belt when I was 17. And I used to teach. Yeah. That was me.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me that feels like a little bit of like, if you're like, put this on a graph and, putting this, plotting this out, that's a blip to me. It made it was totally me. But I get it now too, but it was just interesting. But otherwise, everything was very focused. And so all I was trying to do was make good on that, on my promise to myself. I was going to be a lawyer. So what school do I want to go to? But even in that, so I get out of high school, I graduate with honors, and I end up going to IU in Bloomington. IU in Bloomington was wonderful to me, and I had a great time there. I met some of my friends who are lifelong friends for me there. But I hate why I went to IU.
Yeah.
Because I only went to IU because I was terrified to be anyplace else. This version of me, that little Dawn, if she could have processed the concept of college, would have been like, what about New York? What about LA?
Right.
But I was scared. I was so scared. I was scared of everything. I was scared that I wouldn't be able to just, I don't know. It wasn't about so much. I didn't want to be away from my mother. I was scared of that too, but I was just scared of my life.
Yeah.
So I was getting my life, but in a box. And so I went to IU. And then I had another glimpse. So I've had these moments where I've gotten reintroduced to her. So she's there as a little girl. She disappears through high school. Once I get through high school, and then I go to college, and she shows back up when I pledge my sorority. So that's junior year, fall of '91, and I meet these women and decide. I never knew anything about sororities. Never even thought about it. I meet these women and decide that I want to be a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And that decision changed my life in terms of just, if you had any of my we call them my sands, those who pledged with you, if you talked to any of my sands, as a matter of fact, if you sat them down right now and said, like, what was Dawn like in college, they would describe for you a Dawn that's very similar to this Dawn. Which I find, because I actually, when I released my podcast a few months ago, one of my roommate, who was my sands and all, which is one of my best friends, she was like, I know I don't mean to sound insulting. This is really, really good, and it's awesome, and I love it, and it's so you. She goes, but I gotta tell you, I've seen this you ever since I've known you.
Wow.
And I was like, She goes, you just never saw her.
Why do you think that is? Why did that show up in that environment?
Because it was the first time I found affirmation. I was no longer too black for my white friends and too white for my black friends. I was no longer trying to fit in some Jordache jeans because I was affirmed and said, hey, you know, them hips and them thighs and them the lips and the way you flow and all that stuff, that's good. That's a good thing, girl. That's not something that you got to run away from. I was no longer trying to fit into the mold of what pretty was based upon either sort of European standards or whatever. I was affirmed. So but beyond that, they spoke to me. They spoke to a Dawn I didn't even see. I'd forgotten about her, but they spoke. So I was like, it's the first time. They're like, so we're going to, Dawn, do you do that? You're going to sing, you're going to do that. You do all these things I'd never done really in public. They're like, it never even crossed their mind to speak to the lesser version of me.
Sure. They didn't recognize
They didn't even recognize. They were like, what?
Yeah.
Because I never presented her to them, even though I didn't know it. When they first met me, I mean, again, I'm going to this thing. A lot of them have been planning the pledge the whole time they've been on campus, like it's waiting for their moment. I didn't know anything about it. I went to the information meeting on a whim because I was an economics major, and she now is one of my sorors, but the person who was in the chapter at the time, she was struggling in economics. So I helped her. And she was like, you should come to this information meeting. I'm like, for what? And so I went, and I walk in the room. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you could be smart and beautiful and all these things all together that you didn't have to choose. And people, it was just a really just absolutely affirming moment to see that many just amazing black women in a room.
How important that representation is.
Yeah,
because
it's everything.
When you don't have that diversity, that variety, those people that look, sound, or what in whatever format, right?
That's right.
Whether it be
That's
race, whether it be language, whether it be anything, you feel so unseen, and you just tell your story of, this is my entire world and I don't belong anywhere in it. Right? So I gotta just drift alone, but it feels so right, and you don't even need to explain it. You don't even need to understand it. It attracts you. And I love that because they saw you and your greatness when you didn't even realize it, because that's where their filter is.
That's where their filter, exactly.
Their filter isn't, well, you don't fit in the jeans and the this and that. That's not their metric. Their metric is one where you do fit into those things and you have that greatness. And how important it is to have those people out in the world. And that's why, for me as an immigrant, I realize the benefit I have of looking white with the light skin and the green eyes and no accent. Like, I realize that I fit into a lot of molds a lot of other people in my technical real situation don't fit into.
Gotcha.
And I didn't see a lot of me growing up, but because I had assimilated so well to the culture, it didn't really stop me. But now I see that power I hold of. If I get let in the boardroom, my job is to keep the door open for everyone else. Because every boardroom, I'm sure you have this too, we could be better at diversity. They don't do anything about it. They don't do anything about it. They get the one, check, and then they're good.
Yeah. And you're the only one. Like, who do we know? Like, get Dawn.
Exactly.
Yeah, like,
but what happens is, you're the token and there's no real change. There's no okay, there's the one, but then everything else under that is the same thing. And like for me, it's kind of, okay, I benefited so much once I started to see more people like me, once I started to oh, you too. And for me, those people need to see that. They need to see. I think about the kids now and it's like, look, there's someone that looks like me and like you. And
you have to see it. You have to see it. The importance, and I'm not going to make this political, but just for a moment, just what we're talking about, the critical importance of President Obama's presidency was not the things he got done or whatever. Those things, I mean, that's fine. The moment that man became a credible contender and the moment he won changed so many little kids. Yeah. And even more, I was more moved, honestly, by his wife. Because I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
You feel me? Yes. So no, I mean, and there's all kinds of little girls like, yep. Right there.
And it's proven now.
Exactly.
It's not a concept.
Exactly. People take that for granted. They don't understand that that's a critical part of having privilege, is that you see yourself everywhere.
Yeah.
You see yourself everywhere.
Of course I belong if I wanted to.
Of course you belong if you want to. I mean, that's why. Of course I do this. Of course I run this.
Yeah.
Of course there's nothing about it that sounds crazy or foreign or even like a mountain to climb. It's like, okay, I mean, it's happened 50 million times. And so that's why this is just, it was such an affirming thing for me to walk in that room. And those women, they never tolerated any of my less than talking.
Oh.
So even when I would try to revert back to certain things, they were like, girl, come on, you're going to go do this. And so I believed them for those 2 years I was with them. And then I left and went to law school. I left that campus and went over to U of I. And then she went away again.
Oh.
And the less than version of me returned.
Did you notice it?
Oh, yeah. But she said this. No, that's a good question. I knew I was different because I was without my sands. I now looking at this with the mindset that I have today, it's a clear shift.
Yeah.
Because from day one in law school, everything then became about I must show up. The pressure came back. There wasn't. It was just I was alone again.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody when I went over. It was just a very different thing. And
Survival mode again.
Survival mode again. And I started. Even the people that I ended up dealing with there, the guy I dated who was just absolutely horrible for me. I look back on that relationship and I'm like, I just don't even understand what version of me would have been that okay with saying yes to him. Yeah. But it's because she returned, the one who didn't know who she was.
And I think that's so telling because those shifts of environment, of job, of relationship, of whatever, there's no reference point. So you know it's different, but you don't know why it's different. You don't know why it's different. Because it's new, because it's whatever. And you maybe think, oh, after a while I'll get comfortable. It'll go back into.
I never did.
But you just go back into a new groove that you stay in. And the difference of how great it is to have people validate you, but how important it is for you to be able to do that yourself. That's
that right there.
Yeah.
That's because if I knew who I was, it wouldn't have mattered what environment it put me in. But I didn't.
Yeah.
And I didn't when I was with
You're
my sands.
You're relying on your sands.
Yeah. My sands propped me up.
Yeah.
Because that's what's funny. When I came home from law school, I come back to Fort Wayne. I start practicing this huge, the biggest firm in Indiana, and I remember one of my dearest, one of my other best friends is also my sands. She does my hair. She's my glam squad of one, I call her. But I remember she tells this story. She's like, she remembers, she goes, I would come and sit in her beauty shop at the time, and I'd have my laptop, and I wouldn't really talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And she and I hadn't seen each other because I went away to law school and she came back here. So we hadn't really been around each other for 4 years?
Yeah.
3 years. And so I'm sitting there and she tells the story now. She's like, I remember sitting there looking at you like, what the F is wrong with you? Like, who are you? Like, where's my sands? Like, why aren't you talking to anybody? And what about this? And and she goes, you're weird. Why are you weird now? Because she never met this version of me.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, and I was so insecure then because I'm like, what? Because I'm like, what? And she's like, you know me. And I'm like, but she was right. I did know her.
Yeah.
It was just becoming apparent to everyone else, and myself included, I didn't know me.
Oof.
And so it was you have to, it's critical that you stay grounded and settled for yourself because circumstances, people, things will flip on you.
And that is something that I have very consciously been working on for the last few years. With COVID, 2019 was such a big year for me of, I did a TED Talk.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
It was so exciting, but I was on the cover of a magazine and I had people that I didn't know coming up to me, you. And it was odd because I'd always been doing the same thing, working hard as hell, and now I was getting all this recognition. But then 2020 came, and not only was I getting more attention than I was used to, but then when 2020 hit, it hit like negative.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where I realized, I'm counting on external validation way too much. Yeah. And since then, it's been like, you got to be able to talk yourself up in any situation. And friends help. They will get you back to ground zero, but they can't be the main thing.
They can't be there. They can't be the main thing. And they can never be the main thing. And it's dangerous. That less than mindset is dangerous. I mean, the guy I talked about, the people I dated, the guy I dated in law school, stuff like that. I mean, it's dangerous the things I allowed to happen to me.
It's a slippery slope.
It's dangerous who you let in your life when you don't know who you are. You think you need them. You think that without you, you're nothing. And if you're like, I don't have a problem with people, but it's dangerous then to do. You could do it with titles. I did it for years because I go in. I'm the first, black female lawyer that we have in our firm, and then I'm the first black female equity partner we have in our firm. I'm the first black female, equity partner to matriculate from associate to partner in the state of Indiana. That stuff will soup you up.
Yeah.
If you don't know who you are, and unfortunately, it did for me for a little bit. And not in the sense of making me arrogant, where I walk around and I'm like, "Do you know who I am?" It's not that.
Right.
What it did, what I mean by that is it became my identity. So when it's threatened, it's devastating, right? That's what causes people when you're like, why do they have everything and they jumped off a building?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. It looked like their life is amazing. What would make them do that? They don't know who they are. They don't know how valuable they are. They have no idea that they're enough. They have no idea that the fact that whether they give out whatever they give out or have these hundreds of millions of dollars that they have or create whatever they do or put out, have the concerts that they have, if they don't do any of that, they still are amazing. They don't have any idea of that.
Yeah.
And if you think it's the things, when the things mess up or they get tricky or like you said in 2020 go like that, then you're like, I have no choices now. I need to jump off a building.
You're attaching your identity to things that largely are out of your control.
Yeah.
Right? And that it's so incredible that after all of those things, you being the first this as a lawyer, you got to what Little Dawn wanted, and that should have been we're good. But even then you were lost. You weren't knowing what you had inside. So how long were you in that before you got out of that?
Probably longer than I like to admit. So I'm thinking, I was already a partner. So you think about it. I start practicing in 1996. I didn't become a partner until 2005, and so it's roughly around 2010, 2011 when I began to really start doing a deep dive into what the heck is wrong with me.
Did something prompt that?
Yeah, because I couldn't figure it out. To your point. Okay, so now you have what you want, and it's working. Because see, 2008, 2009, 2005, I had my second son. I come back from maternity leave with no work, and seemingly nobody who kind of gave a damn that I had any work. And so I had to learn to fish on my own. Yeah. Which is at the time seemed just horrific, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But still, so I build up my client base and everything. Everything was about work for me. So that's why I'm shaping it like this. It's unfortunate because I'm married to the most amazing man, and yet I'm not sitting here talking to you about all of that because all I was focused on was this stuff.
Oh, that takes years out of your life.
Yeah, I just regret that so much. I had to apologize to him actually because I was like, I'm sorry, because I used to tell myself like he knew what he got when he married a lawyer. He knew what he understood. That's not fair. But I just was focused in this regard. So I come back and I go through this really rough time. I got put on a performance improvement plan, which for somebody who's an overachiever and all these things, not because of the work.
Must have crushed you.
Crushed me because I wasn't making any money for the firm. And so I get out of that. I'm making money for the firm. I'm eating what I kill. I'm feeding other people. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm finally off lists, all these things. And I'm like, so now what's wrong with you? Good answers to this. And so I go to church. Church is over this Sunday, and I don't remember the exact day, but it was probably around. So I'm thinking now we're in like 2011, something like that. I go to church. Church is over, and my pastor is just talking. He's just musing. And he makes this comment. He's like, you're the sum total of your thoughts of you right now. He's like, and it's not that, like I said, that's not terribly profound in and of itself. I've heard that before, but it was in that moment.
You were open to receive it.
Yeah, I was open to it, yeah. And he's like, seriously, everything you've thought about you up until this point it formulates who you are right now. And so he's like, think about that. I just really want to think of that. He's like, really, you need to assess what you think of you because everything, he goes, you'll never rise any higher than those thoughts. So I wrote down in my phone at the time, and I was like, so what do you think of you, Dawn? And my answer surprised me because I'm honest. I'm really honest when I write. Yeah. And my answer was, not much. I don't like you very much. And mind you, that's all this. At this time, I've got ink. In terms of I've been featured in different articles, different awards. I'm off those programs. I am making money. My practice is growing.
Everything is checked.
My kids are good. Yeah. And it's just, I'm like, what is wrong with you? And so I answered that question. I'm like, well, and it took me then from probably the course of, I'm still on this journey, but in terms of this deep, deep dive, probably about 3 years to maybe at least to like begin to unpack the stuff. That's when I discovered that I had severe dad issues. I didn't know it until then. So I'm, because at that time I remember watching my husband play with my son, my oldest son, who was a toddler at the time. They were wrestling or whatever, something like that. And I walked down the stairs and I saw that and I started crying because I realized I was like, oh, that's what I didn't get. And I watched him with our boys. I'm like, that's the stuff. Right. And I'm like, and then I'm like, I'm having a nervous breakdown because I'm like, my gosh, really, Dawn? You're like almost 40. Like, really? This is you're breaking down
and
over
you had
this?
Unpacked enough that now it's catching fire.
Yeah. And so now I'm like screwed because I'm like, I really think I'm having some sort of midlife crisis because I'm like, why are you crying? What is wrong with you? I remember being on this call with some friends of ours. We used to have this marriage group and we would talk and they're like, how are the Rosemonds? And I just didn't even talk. And they were like, what's going on? And I was like, just kind of feel like I'm in this wilderness season. So I felt maybe, what's the right word? Like not angry, but like selfish and for not being happy with what. Does that make sense?
Appreciating all the things you've done.
Like, come on, Dawn.
You should be happy.
You should be happy now. And there are people starving. There are people whatever. And you're sitting here whining.
And now you feel even worse.
Yeah, and I feel worse, right? And so it's just crazy. And I remember my friend told me to watch Daddyless. Some Oprah special was doing Oprah was doing something on fatherless sons and daddyless daughters. And I'm like, I'm not watching that crap. I'm not doing that. And it came on one night. And I was like, and my husband was asleep. I literally just am sobbing. So then I'm like, I got to unpack that. And then I'm like, what is going on? And then I start thinking, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. And I'm like, what? Like, I've wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was a little girl because I didn't know how to give myself permission to do anything else.
You start ripping apart your own story that you believed so long.
Exactly. And so that was what was going on. So it was traumatic for me because everything that I leaned on was getting ripped away from me. And I realize now, God's like, because I need you to lean on me.
Yeah.
And stop leaning on these crutches you've created and all this stuff. And even all these lies you've told yourself about who you are and that you're not enough and all this stuff like that. And so that journey literally was like, it was, just like being let out of jail. One that I had erected.
Yeah.
You can be really, really, I say this all the time, every time I speak, and I just be remiss if I didn't say it here, but you can be really, really accomplished and really, really broken all at the same time.
Mm-hmm. They're not mutually exclusive.
No.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that when you open that box that you've kept away for so long, it's not pretty. It's not nice. It's not like, oh, sunshine, we figured it out. You don't snap.
Look at Dawn. She was here and now look at her.
Now the mess is everywhere and you can't ignore it, but you don't know what to do with it. It's such a tough transitional time of I have stuff to work on to actually fixing it. Because like you said, you're still on that journey. I'm still on that journey. I had a therapy appointment today. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's getting used to the fact that it's okay. It's getting used to being in that discomfort. And I think most people bury and hide when they just can't handle that discomfort because it's overwhelming. But, I talk a lot about fear. Like when you look at it, you take that big monster because when you don't want to look, it seems so big. But then when you open the curtains and turn the lights on, you see it for what it is. Yeah. And you can co-live with it now and you can adjust and make it down into these bite-sized pieces.
I just had no tolerance, what you said is spot on. I had no tolerance for lying to myself anymore. Yeah. And I didn't like how I felt. Yeah. And I didn't want to feel like that anymore. And it wasn't sustainable. And I've got boys that I'm raising with my husband and I'm like, and I can't teach them something I'm not living. And so I'm telling them the right things. And you're like, Dawn, you don't even believe it. Right. Dawn, you don't even act like it. You say it to these people, you don't even act like it. And so I really had to start holding myself accountable to my own bullcrap and like not dealing with this stuff and why I'm making the decisions. I remember, reading something where they're like, basically taking everything you do and just asking yourself, tell yourself the truth. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you going that? Well, why are you on that board? Right. Why'd you volunteer for that? You start to dissect everything and start to be intentional. Am I doing it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons? Like you said with Bloomington. That's right. I love that you went, but not why. Not why I went. Yeah. And so I really just couldn't stay there. And so I was determined to move me to higher ground. So fast forward into today. Okay. Who's done now? Because we've done work. We're still growing. We're still learning. And, like you said, at a point where you're so high up and have already done so much,
you're starting to make these realizations. So how do you today compare to that? Talk to me about your thought process now. Talk to me about Reign. Tell me about you living in all of those things that you learned.
Yeah, so Dawn today is free.
Oh, love that.
Yeah, still on a journey. Reign is a journey. Still, and thank you for asking about Reign. Reign is it's what birthed out of all of that introspection that I just talked to you about. So Reign means REIGN, means to overcome, to dominate, to superabound, to win, to sway, to have influence, the essence of win, to wear a crown. I mean, Reign,
Yeah.
I got a hold of the word during all that time, and I'm a words person. I love stuff, and it just exploded for me. And it wasn't hype because I wasn't doing this for anybody else. I wasn't trying to create some sort of platform. I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just trying to heal.
Yeah.
But as I did that, I still am Dawn in these roles, in these spaces, on these boards. I got new language. When you get elevated consciousness, you have elevated speech, right? And so I didn't talk about the same things. I did a post out the other day to my folks who follow me. I call them my REIGNdancers, and I said, like, your taste in people will change when you start loving yourself.
Yeah.
Your taste in everything changes
Yes.
when you start loving yourself.
You stop trying to fit into the room, and you have the room fit into
Yeah,
you.
you don't even care. You're like,
Yeah.
you're like, look, this room is just
Right.
absolutely ill-equipped to hold me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and it's not arrogance. It's honor. It's honor of
Yeah.
who you are. And so I just started wanting to talk about one thing. So people would ask me to speak because they look at my credentials. And they'll be like, okay, Dawn is a partner of this law firm and blah blah. And I'm like,
The
fine.
stuffy intro.
Yeah. So I'll let that be the reason why you want to book me at that
Sure.
point. And so I would go in, and then I'm like, but I'm gonna call it, I just want to talk about these things. And so then I started, I'd have the opportunity, the privilege of speaking sometimes to students. In my first Reign class, I think it was like 2015, 2014, something like that. Maybe a little bit. I'm off on that sometimes. But anyway, I brought some students to my office. I told my girlfriend, I was like, look, I'm going to call this a Reign class. I got to talk to them. What do you think? She's like, let's go for it. And I said, I'm going to give them these nuggets or whatever. I think I'm going to call them raindrops. What do you think? She's like, let's go for it. And so I did that. And then they started, emoting back to me, and they started posting all my stuff on Facebook, and like, Miss Dawn said this, raindrop, blah, this fire, blah, blah. And then I realized, there are more people who have been me than I realized, that I wasn't alone in that journey.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who I get a chance to turn them on to themselves.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that more and more. And then finally it got to a place where I was like, if you want me to come speak, I'm not talking to you about any of us. So if you want to get, person to do this or this or this, that's not me. But if you want someone to come that's going to point your people to their greatness, that's going to work on them to help them unlock all that greatness that's hardwired into their DNA, that's me. Yeah. And so that's where that's what Reign, the platform, I like to call it the movement. Platform's too small for me. But where it comes from, because all I'm trying to do, whether I'm doing it through my books, whether I'm doing it through my speaking engagements, which I call Reign classes, I put out raindrops through my Instagram channel. I now have a podcast called Standing in the Rain. Whatever I'm doing, it's all the same. I'm after one thing.
Yeah.
I want to give people the cheat code so they don't spend that time like I did, wandering and wondering if they're enough. Let me help you. Because what I realized in that journey of introspection is that, yes, it's true about me that I'm enough, that I'm greatness walking, that I belong in every room that I enter. But it's true about you too. It has to be. It has to be, because there's only one you. There's only one me. We're that special. So that's what Reign is for me.
And I love how you're connecting it back to like what your sands did for you.
Yeah.
It's
that's
that reflection.
Exactly.
It's
that's
that reflection.
Good. Yeah.
And that's so important. And I love and I think this is why we get along so much, because you took all of the things you learned and said, me learning this is not enough. I need to push back. I need to get everyone else on this. Like, how much time could other people save? How much more could they love themselves today by spreading all of the things that you've learned?
And you know what? Let me just be real honest with you. I feel literally a pull on me when I get around people. I truly believe that I was created to point people to their greatness. I believe it's my superpower. And it pulls on me when I get around. Especially, I remember I did a Reign class for the regional BALSA chapter. BALSA means Black Law Students Association. And I told them, I said, rarely, it was hard in a good way, but I looked in their eyes and I saw me. And I'm like, golly, I wanted to hug every one of them. And all I'm trying to do with my words, honestly, is to kind of just wrap my arms around them and let them know, like, hey, those things you hear in your head, they're lies. You are enough. Because I know that look in your eyes, I remember it. And so, yeah, I get, it pulls on me. I think it's a burden in a good way. Like, what I mean by that is that I just don't know now how to live my life not doing this.
Right. And you know, the connection that I make there is you're doing the best you can to hug little Dawn.
Yeah.
Because you can't go back and hug her, but there's so many other little Dawns that need that hug right now. And for you to give that back is super incredible. And I would say that every time I talk to you, the visual I get is you just, let me straighten that for you. Because every time I walk out, I'm like, Dawn's right. I gotta, you know, and that's so important. But no, it's incredible, just like you said, that journey and why, you know, we're here and doing what we're doing and why, you know, Founders Park exists is that part of like, you're not the only one. You think you are. But listen to Dawn and you're going to see yourself in those bits and pieces that relate to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my heartbeat. It's all I want to do. I mean, I know I still, I have, you know, different roles within my, you know, law firm. I do different things in other places, but at bottom, that's at the core of me. And for me with REIGN now, all I'm trying to do is to grow it, spread it. I just want more access.
Yeah.
Not to big rooms and big stages, to people.
Yes.
I don't care.
The impact.
Give me your time, please. Right. So that I can talk to you about you. My heart's desire is that when people encounter me, however they encounter me, is that they go away. They may not even know how to explain it, but they go away and they're like, golly, I feel, like you said, I feel taller.
Yeah.
I feel better than I did when I came in.
Right.
That's what I'm after. It's not okay. And it's absolutely debilitating to live this beautiful, precious gift of a life.
Yeah.
Less than. It's
100%.
debilitating. It destroys everything around you. Your relationships, destroys your business. You may make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. You may have a lot of people around you, but the air is so much sweeter.
And you'll realize it's not enough.
It's not enough. That's the problem. It's never enough because you're always trying to fill something. When you get this, when you get turned on to this, it doesn't make you want to stun on people and floss and tell them how great you are. What it makes you want to do, REIGN's contagious. Mm-hmm. What it makes you want to do is like, I gotta find somebody. I gotta find in my area. Yes. I gotta find there's a because I always tell people like, you're somebody's possible. So you may never meet them, but sometimes you have the privilege, and when you've seen it, when somebody comes up to you, you're like, I've been watching you.
And you're never gonna know the impact you make.
You're never gonna know. So you've got to get this. It's selfish on my part. I want them to get it for themselves, but more, I need them to get it. I need you to be totally from the inside, know that you are amazing and accomplished and enough. I don't care if all this goes away. It's still true. Because when you get that, everybody you touch, man, you're going to elevate them.
Yes.
Converse is true too, because we cannot rise any higher than our ceiling, than our thoughts. Our thoughts are our ceiling. The problem is those whom we lead, whom we manage, sometimes even our children, neither can they. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
If my mother is a prime example, if we take this all the way back, and she didn't mean it. My mother loves me.
Sure.
But my mother established a ceiling. It was established for her. And she told me I could be anything I wanted to be and do anything I wanted to do. But there was still a ceiling about who I didn't know how to love me.
Yeah.
I never watched her love her. She didn't know how.
No, I think exactly what you're doing, we need in this world. And I think that's why we get along so well, because we see the importance of that. So talk to me about today. What's REIGN doing? What's Dawn doing now?
What's REIGN not doing? Right? You're doing so much stuff. It's so fun. So I just launched my new podcast. We're in episode 3. It just launched yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, Standing in the Rain. So you can find it anywhere where you can get podcasts. My YouTube channel at REIGN Today. Oh my gosh, I've got a workshop called Ready Set Reign Wait What? Because a lot of people when they encounter me, they're always like, well, I get it, I hear you, but what do we do? Where do we start?
Yeah.
And so that's a low entry point where you can begin to understand. You can find that. You'll be able to find that on my website. We're actually doing a big sale week here and coming up in a bit for people. I've got a text community, my REIGNdancers. They follow me.
You killed it with the name. How about just every time?
Yeah, I love yeah. So
love
they have
it.
my text community, so you can text. Now make sure you guys have it, but you can text REIGN to 877-969-3397, and you get me and all sorts of things. Plus, you'll get deals for different things where I'm going to be, where I'm going to be speaking. My REIGN gear line drops before the end of the year. So I mean, just come on, and then like next week, I don't know, when people see this, but I'll do these again. I have these deeper dives, these masterminds called REIGN tables. My first one is next week actually, and it's an immersive experience all about you. It's very limited in terms. This one only has 10 seats, but it's really a 2-day. We're going to talk about it. We're going to unpack it, and we're going to, you're going to leave. Oh my gosh, you're just going to accelerate your journey. REIGN is a journey. It's a constant one that you're going to be on. It's a constant one that I'm on.
Yeah.
What I have to offer is that I've already gone out before you. So now I can turn around and shortchange your journey a little bit so that you can get to where you're going, faster. But so many things to come. I'm working on my second book. I hope to have it out. I'd hope to have it out this year, but it looks like it's going to be in 2022. Actually, more than one, but I know definitively my second book will be out. So just so many ways.
What's the book called?
It's called Superheroes Anonymous.
Oh,
Discovering
nice.
the awesome power of knowing who you
2022.
are. Yes, and so what's cool about that, because you will get it when you see the cover, it's certainly a deeper dive into this concept of REIGN built within this superhero context, because I love that stuff, and you hear me talk about superpower a lot. But my ultimate goal too with that is that I'm setting it up because my son and I, my youngest son and I, who's really into this sort of thing and animation and things like that, I want to launch the Rainmaker comic book series.
Oh my goodness.
You're gonna see it. You mark my words.
I'm waiting for it. I need a signed autograph.
Yeah, but you're gonna see it on the screen, whether Marvel buys it or not. Maybe we'll see how they do. But you're gonna see a Rainmaker cartoon, a Rainmaker comic book, or show or something. I just want to, it's the coolest concept in the world. I'm so excited about it. I've got her. She's created. She's a bad chick too. So I'm just so many things. All I'm trying to do is as many ways by any means necessary, put this out, and I want to have fun. And doing it.
Well, I was going to say, I love how excited you get.
Oh,
I'm sure
my
you've never
gosh.
gotten that excited about being a lawyer.
No. You know what? You know what's funny, and I'm glad you said that, because I remember, I did say to you, like, I didn't understand why I wanted to be one then, but I do now. I'm grateful for this career, because the things I had to do. I'm a litigator, a trial lawyer. The way I learned to tell stories, to convince people that my client or my side of the story is right, the skill sets that I've garnered, and quite frankly, the thick skin I've developed, all the things that I learned in this practice are serving me so well now on this journey, building and growing REIGN. And so I am grateful for all of it. And plus, so many of my stories, my journey, so many doors I have now are open come because of this profession. A lot, one of my other favorite places I got to go speak and to have a REIGN class was in the Minnesota Women Lawyers Association. Huge room full of lawyers, young and old, and I look, same thing. I always have this experience. I look at them and I can see in their eyes they were a whole room of highly accomplished, highly broken people, and they let me in.
Whoops.
Because I was a lawyer. Yeah. They didn't know.
Yeah.
Right? So I get a chance to leave them better than I found them. And they go out, and I'm not trying to get people to leave the profession or do that. Not at all. I need you turned on to your greatness. I don't
do
care
it for
where
the
you
right
are.
reasons, right?
Wherever you are.
Yeah.
Don't quit unless that's what you're led to do. But if you're going to be a lawyer or a street sweeper or a doctor, my gosh, elevate your consciousness so you understand that you belong in the room so you don't harm people. Right? So you don't harm people, but beyond that, so you can truly, truly, truly be in position for all that's for you, that flows when you are in place. REIGN is not hype. REIGN is positioning.
Love that. So, Don, thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you. This is awesome. I'm so proud of you. This is good.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
Everybody